The biggest challenge we find is companies don't actually have the data that they would like to have. So there's a lot of dreams about being able to predict the future, being able to adapt very quickly to problems. But in our line of work, we specialize in data collection, analysis, reporting, and what we're finding is that the data is not there to begin with. And so we're actually starting to put in the business processes and the technology to collect the data and keep it up to date is actually the first step, and most companies haven't effectively tackled that first step. We learn everything about supply chains from the military and from the electronics industry. So these are industries where the value of the product is so high that it's always had to be traced for various security reasons from the source all the way to the destination. And there's an infinite budget in these industries, so they can devote any amount of money to tracing all of their products. And what we're really seeing is, the same way that Boeing can follow all the pieces of an airplane to put together the Dreamliner, this technology is slowly becoming more democratized, and it's accessible to smaller and smaller businesses who can expect the same visibility. I'm really impressed with the food industry. I didn't realize to what extent the culture of food, even the big manufactured food brands, requires a very close collaboration with suppliers for quality, for maintaining the consistency of the flavors and of the products they deliver. So by far and large, food is our biggest business, and their interest in traceability, I believe, is founded in a real collaboration with suppliers, and so it goes all the way down to the farm, and they expect to trust everybody who they do business with. A lot of people are coming to me asking for blockchain. They have an idea that there's a silver bullet and a technology that will solve the entire problem. And as long as you have enough technology, the data will be perfect. And what we're finding is actually the data alone, the technology alone, will always have problems unless you have business processes and real relationships along the way. And so it's true that we can trace product all the way from a mine to a computer, or from a farm to a candy bar, but without a system of risk assessment and without a system of audits where people engage with each other and talk to each other and visit physically, without that culture, it's very easy to hack these systems. And so you always have to have a human element involved in keeping the data integrity up. A lot of people think that activism is something that you do outside of a company, so NGO or journalist or government. And actually what I've been really surprised to find is activism is something that people do inside the best company. So if your company has a culture of innovation, that means that people are comfortable bringing up ideas that might be a threat, that might be a criticism, and that the leadership is open to listening to those ideas. So when I got the honor of being named, it was actually me and our client at the time, Office Depot, which is a big retailer, and we were actually tied. I think we were number 50 each. And I think it was that discovery that we don't have to fight companies from outside. We can actually fight companies more effectively from inside. And all that meant was that because we were getting the same honor as the companies that were adopting this, that there was a way that this kind of supply chain transparency was actually going to become the norm. So for me, it was just a validation that the mission was the right one. I was teaching at MIT, I was teaching engineers, and I wanted them to have some way of measuring the impact of products. And so they're very good at making them functional, making them beautiful, but they had no way to know, is the carbon footprint too high? Are there problems in the factories where it's made? And so I started looking around and I realized this information just didn't exist at all. And so we started, my team and I, basically crowdsourcing all this data, building a huge public database of all the environmental and all the social impacts of products. And then slowly this was discovered by our sponsors, by the big corporations, and they said, this is the first time we're actually able to map and measure these externalities, these risks. And before, we just knew there were problems, but we had no way to actually manage them or measure them. And so I stopped the nonprofit, started a for-profit, and immediately started working with these brands to basically solve their problems for them. Every time a company decides to map its supply chain, it's going to discover something, right? That's the purpose. The purpose is to make sure there are no more surprises ever again. And so, we were very surprised at how willing companies are to be transparent with each other and with consumers. I was very surprised at how important sustainability became in big companies as a way to attract new talent, and how much money they would invest just to be a good company that does things right, so that people would be happy to work there. And then lately, I've just been impressed at these companies where the company culture is so strong that they actually feel like their suppliers have to be treated with the same standards as the employees, and helping identify the suppliers, find out what the problems are, and then seeing them, the conditions improve across the globe has been incredibly encouraging.